Welcome back, boys, to The Lonely Road. Hopefully, I assume that this is recording properly. I am laggy for some reason because I haven't been plugged in yet. But I moved around my entire fucking house and living room, so hopefully this is recording properly. I don't know how you're seeing it, KJ, but how have you been?
I'm seeing it okay. It's just a tiny bit laggy. Definitely different than usual. So yeah. Other than that, we'll keep pressing on. I am. I'm in a state of unrest, just like the rest of the country, apparently. Um, I mean, some of it's from the things that are going on socially, but I have a lot of things going on personally. And let me just tell you, this process of home buying it can be very, very stressful and taxing. And it's definitely not for the weak or the person who can't stick with something through completion, because it is a process. Let me tell you. But if you want it, it can happen, whether you have all the cash for the down payment or not, which I'm finding out. So that's always good, the good and the bad. But I'm hashed. Yes, I'm hashed. Yep, been very, very busy.
Oh, completely. I've been dealing with so much fucking shit. So much chaos has gone on, and I'm just waiting for more to happen. Um, But no, I dealt with the same thing when I went to buy my house, when I went to purchase a house too. I found out that, socials were used and everything else, and it was just trying to go through all the little minute shit and trying to figure out exactly how everything kind of was. That, it's really kind of hard to figure out because you find out shit that you don't want to know. You find out that you're not in the place that you think you are, but you may actually be in a better place in some ways. And it just feels like everything's kind of like flipping the bird at you almost. Because like, oh, my mortgage would be cheaper even if I added in lot rent and I bought a modular, but there's no help for that. I mean, it's just like, what the fuck is any of this?
Right. It can be very, very taxing, and very, very discouraging, but uh, it's definitely a process where you have to mine for as much information as you can get for grants and programs, because they're out there to help you understand the process and where you should start. I ended up starting, well, I started at like the middle point. So I'm kind of backfilling, some things that I need to do as far as, resources are concerned. And then, we'll move forward with it. But yeah, it's kind of been kind of taxing, very actually taxing, because you're not taught this process. And I think
No.
this would be a valuable, valuable class to have in high school. So when you're a senior in high school, what you need to be going towards, and why your credit needs to stay the way it needs to stay, and why your
I
debt
didn't
to
even
income ratio needs to be lower, and all this stuff.
I didn't even know what a credit score was until I was like 25.
Yeah, yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. I didn't know that it mattered as much as it does. That's for
Yeah.
sure. So it was definitely a learning experience. Well, it's been quite the learning experience. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's nothing
Even
new. Everything's in a state of chaos and unrest these days in the world. Actually,
yeah. It's really weird. And I'm just sitting here and I just ADHD think it's weird. So I had this right underneath my camera before, and it's the house from the Fast and the Furious. That's where Joshua is living right now. He's a heart in the backyard because I thought it was funny because they always go to the backyard, sit down, and have a Corona and have dinner together. And I was like, that's an adorable way to put it. But then you have the Harry Potter mirror, and then the fucking bird from fucking Moana, and then Stitch. So I have all of my kids here in the same place, and Brie. And it just made me happy looking at it because I was like, I didn't even like intentionally do it. It's just cute and it just made me like pop a little bit. I thought it was funny.
yeah.
But yeah, no, the world is just turning to a weird fucking place, and I don't want to give away the answer of what I think it is, but I also think that it's a nice way to kind of circle about it. It seems like the way that we are treating everybody that we don't agree with is just completely dehumanizing them.
It
We're
is
turning them
very.
into a we're turning them into a phrase. We're turning them into like, oh, they have to be this or they have to be that. Like I was attacked last week verbally on Facebook and everything else, and I was told that I pissed in a kitty litter box and everything else. And then he flipped and said that I'm a little man, and it's like, dude, I don't know if you're Republican or Democrat or where you don't agree with me, but it's like at some point you kind of have to stop just dehumanizing somebody because you don't like them because they called you out on something like and then we're going from just stepping on one person's toes to all of a sudden it being worse, one person starting a war against 50 others, and then all of a sudden they're seeing that our thought process aligns and now we're 50 on 50, and it just
Yeah.
escalates and escalates and escalates, and it's scary.
Chaos is contagious, bro. Chaos absolutely is contagious, and it uh coming to this part two of the social unrest, we have to kind of hone it back into what the podcast is about, like what are we doing here? We're here to hone it back in and bring it into the grief and the betterment of the issue, and not it is happening. The chaos is becoming contagious. These pop-up no kings protests are turning quite violent, kind of like the George Floyd ones. And it's becoming pretty fiery and deadly with the lawmakers that have been killed, and it linked back to No Kings activist, as well as a lawmaker appointed by none other than Tim Walz. So all this stuff, it's really, really like sketchy. It's starting to be real sketchy. And so people are on both sides, regardless of what political side or social side, should we say, you belong to, you feel a sense of loss in some way.
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting. I did a little bit of an experiment, because I've found that ChatGPT for me most of the time has been pretty based. It comes back with pretty based responses for the questions that I ask it. And if I tailor the question a little bit, it comes back with another side of the issue. So for instance, when I was going through doing the research about the second half of this pod today, I asked ChatGPT about social unrest and the grief surrounding the social unrest.
Yeah.
And it gave me, an outline of the loss surrounding the migrants and their families. And, secondary trauma for people who know them, or those not really directly affected but are witnessing the deportations, and the cultural and identity-based grief that it causes, and the loss of trust in the institutions, which comes from both social sides of the aspect, and then fear of the future and uncertainty for the migrants, and it went into what things can help in those type of situations. And it was really interesting to me when I did a second search, if you will, because I said that's absolutely something that people can have empathy on. And at the same time, I really feel like people can have, alongside that grief caused by that social division and political unrest, there's a real and often underrepresented part of or side of the story and trauma, and it's that experienced by victims of violent crime and trafficking of women and children across the border, that's been happening the last few years. And when I asked that question, in particular how it relates to victims such as Laken Riley and her family, and the like, as well as the trafficking, and it came back with a whole different side of it. Instead of presenting that up front, both sides, it kind of presented one side from the question that I asked it, and then presented the other side when I asked it the opposing view. So it does, you know, manifest the opposite view in a lot of cases. But it started talking about victims of violent crime and exploitation and high profile cases like the Lake and Riley case, and how that manifests into grief and families and communities feeling outraged at the crime, and the cartels and the smuggling and people forced into trafficking, and the emotional impact on this on society, not only the victims or secondary victims, but basically. And it went into how grief manifests in that case. So it was a nice little experiment for me to do, in working Chat GPT, because some people will say it's left leaning, some people will say it's more right leaning, but I find that it depends on how you speak to it and how you actually craft the questions.
It gives you the bias that you're looking for. And it's the same exact thing that I remember when we were writing our like senior papers and stuff like that, or learning about bias even, that if you look for something in a certain way, you will probably find it. Chat GPT doesn't enable that, it multiplies it. The
Mm-hmm.
availability of you finding what you think you're going to find is multiplied by the ease of use, not just, one specific side. If there is a bias to one of them, you're going to find something that is only and entirely a cutoff availability. And like, I think we're seeing that a little bit here and there with all of them, kind of. A
Yeah.
lot of them see Donald Trump as somebody who is, abusive or derogatory in some way. And I think that I can understand where some of that comes from. But I think a lot of it, we're going to see where a lot of figures that we have dealt with, whether that's Obama, Biden, Trump, anybody that's in the recent era, honestly, we kind of should disconnect from in a little bit. Like you see a lot of history channels and history buffs and stuff like that will disconnect from current politics and just watch history, because history is completely disconnected from now. We will not know what happens from now for another 20 or 30 years. So, like the mental health, the grief, the problems that are going on, whether it's what could happen with what's going on, what has happened with these riots, whether it's George Floyd or now, and everything else, there's so many different levels to this that is just insane. We're not going to see anything that falls from the mob mentality or the emotional that like the emotional problems that these riots cause. Because what they do is they cause everybody to have the same fucking mindset until you walk away and you say, oh, fuck, I just did that. Like you even see that in friend groups, like when you're in high school and stuff like that. Somebody will start a fight and then all of a sudden it turns into a 5-on-5 because, oh, my best friend jumps in and then his best friend jumps in and then his best friend jumps in. And now, it's 2 or 3 on 1. So their friends jump in and everything else. And it just escalates and escalates and escalates.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's a huge inconsistency to that.
Yeah, yeah, but that it's just unfortunately in society, more and more unfortunately in society, that chaos is more and more contagious. And I I kind of link it a lot back to people being self-diagnosed and underdiagnosed or overdiagnosed, or like, I feel like some people are off the meds, not on the right meds. I feel like there's been too many meds used, and it's just creating an anger and a fester in people, and it's creating, if they're not directly involved, it's creating a secondary grief, you know, or fight or flight response. And they're not going
Oh,
to be able to deal with any of that until their cord stops vibrating.
well, it's almost a fight, flight, or riot. It's a trauma response that we're seeing, and I don't know. I mean, no disrespect by this, but this is the Karen culture, not you, Karen, but like the I'm gonna complain and bitch about fucking everything. I'm gonna sit here and whine and cry about every single little step that I possibly can. Oh wait, that's what the '90s adults showed us. So now you have the '90s adults and the 2000s adults and the 2010s adults and the 2020 adults. And now we have two generations worth of adults that absolutely just whine and cry about fucking everything. And now we're wagtivists about whining about whatever fucking thing we want to be activists about, whether it's our dinner not being cooked correctly, there's a hair on our food, or we don't have the right fucking tap water in our fucking sink. And it's just like, what exactly, like, can we stop just being activists about fucking everything and actually realize that, at some point, if we keep rioting about absolutely everything, World War III might start tomorrow and it might be the last thing we fucking whine about.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Like along those lines, I wrote something down earlier this week about this, and there's something to be said for not being violent or popping off when you start to get overwhelmed with emotion. There's something to be said about that self-control and being able to compartmentalize that emotion. But I've seen a couple comments, on some videos or shorts, like but how do you do these things? How
Yeah.
do you take yourself out of the situation? And I think in this particular situation, because everything is so heightened, I really feel like the old adage of stop, drop, and roll. When you're on fire, and that's what your emotions are doing right now, when you're on fire, you need to stop, you need to drop, and you need to roll. Get that fire out. Let that cord stop vibrating from the anger that somebody just stoked in you, and touch some grass. Get back to reality of your life. Worry about your bills, your home. Stay off of social media for a little while. Ground yourself in your circle. That's how you start. That's
And I
absolutely
think
how you start.
honestly, maybe not the next episode, because I think one about ADHD, especially with it being the end of Men's Mental Health Month and stuff, should absolutely be done. But maybe 2 episodes from now, we'll go into I do a very, very weird thing in how I handle those things. And you and my aunt and my mom kind of credit me a lot with how I handle things because of like how level-headed I am in fucking chaos. And I have zero idea why I am, but maybe I can help break it down for you guys a little bit and kind of help you guys kind of desensitize yourself to even the situations you're handling. Like there might be a way to help you guys get through some of the chaos that the world is, or even your life is at some point. And maybe we can help some people. But it's so surreal just realizing that, hey, you do not have to feel a bottled up sense of anger and problems for everybody else in a situation. And it's just, you don't have to think that the person on the other side isn't a fucking human. You don't have to feel like all of these problems are just because of one individual person. A lot
No,
of the problems that you feel in life are not because the big bad at the top said, oh, this is going to happen, so let it be. It's a lot of your choices that you didn't realize were going to be a problem from fucking 15 years ago that you're realizing today.
yeah. Yeah, that's what running got me. And when I stopped running, it all kind of piled up on my back. And I'm just taking those monkeys off my back one by one, because it's my circus and they're my monkeys. But I'm gonna throw them off when I see fit. And I'm just getting rid of all the trash and all the things I avoided for years and years and years. I think that keeping in mind that you can hold two truths. You don't have to fight everybody that does not have the same exact viewpoint as you about the social unrest or the chaos that is going on. Everybody has valid points. I find it to be personally, emotionally stunting, or emotionally uh, irresponsible, when somebody just comes out and decides that they're just going to try to dehumanize you and make you feel horrible for the point of view that you have. Calling names, throwing rocks, doing whatever, being violent in whatever way, whether it's violence in the way they're speaking roughly, or whether they're actually being violent. But you can hold two truths. You can mourn victims of crimes having to do with migrants coming here illegally, you can demand justice for those trafficking victims and call for dignity and safety for those legitimately seeking the refuge. So you can demand justice for the victims, as well as, you know, demand a safety in a better way for people that are actually looking for refuge. But, you know, breaking the law is definitely not to do it. But the grief often lives in the tension between that compassion and accountability.
And that grief is exactly this. We paint people who disagree with us as not only just the enemy and not just wrong, but dangerous. And
Yeah,
once you tell somebody that they're less than human and they're dangerous and they're the worst people in the world, your empathy shuts off. Violence, ridicule, and censorship becomes justified because you don't give a fuck.
yeah.
And once you feel like shutting everything off to somebody, regardless of who they are, you're now doing exactly what you said that they do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's important to remember and bring it back to something that we said, something that you said in the beginning of the part two of this episode, is that remember that the person on the other end of your vitriol, of your dehumanization, that person is a human. That person's a human being with feelings and a life and possibly children and a family. And it's not, to have feelings is a human thing. It's not a political thing.
Yeah.
And remember, two truths, you can hold two truths at the same time, even if they're conflicted, even if they're a little bit conflicting. You know, you want to
Every
be,
time every time we say they're all idiots or these people are evil, you're just othering them. The
yeah.
more you put them into that group and you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to talk to them, and you don't want to hear this and you don't want to hear that, you're just devaluing what they are.
Same goes in the other direction too. Like, I hear a lot of people, you know, libs this, Democrats are all this, and I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I believe that there's you know, a spectrum, just like, you know, I know on the right there's a spectrum, and then in the middle there's a spectrum of people, and also on the left there's a spectrum of people. You can't just other people or lump them into a category with a bunch of chumps that they have really nothing in common with.
But like, and this is the crazy part, is like the online culture like supercharges this. It puts a
Yeah,
fucking turbocharger on it, and it
yeah.
causes it to be this big, crazy, big fucking thing, because social media strips away all the body language, the voice, the nuance, and it just causes you to label somebody as a liberal, a fascist, a snowflake, bigot, a retard, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And not only do you label them as like a room temperature idiot, but you label them as a knuckle dragger because they can't put their shit together. You want to go for the most extreme insult, because if you go for a lukewarm one, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, they literally mean nothing by what they're saying. So
Yeah,
not only are all the news media like sensationalized, but every single thing you see about anybody you ever talk to is like it's the biggest, worst fucking thing ever.
yeah. I agree. I think that the polarization right now is at an all-time high, that I can remember in my lifetime. And it really is, it, for some people it's all or nothing. Like, if you voted for Donald Trump, you're automatically a racist and you should be erased from the earth. You know, I mean, it's that polarizing. It doesn't matter that if you wanted to vote and you wanted a choice, and it's not that you were trying to be all about finances or all about your payments or the cost of eggs, as they like to hang on to. But it's about, for me, it was about not doing the wrong things. You know, north is still north at the end of the day. And I don't want drag queens at my my 3-year-old story time hour. It's just not something that I'm interested in. So that was one of my big political ways of my voting. There were certain things that I took into consideration. I am a lesbian, I'm married to a woman. Yes. However, right is right and wrong is wrong according to what I believe, and north is still north. And so I had to kind of take the incongruence of those things and make a more linear path. And that path, I'll die on the hill of not sexualizing children. So there we have it.
Which
And if you tell me that a drag queen isn't sexualization, I got a bridge to sell you in minute
I
Iowa.
think
You know.
I think anybody that comes from the 90s absolutely understands that the movement about sexuality is sexual in nature. I think everybody logically understands that. They don't want to believe it. And I think a lot of people that voted in the last election had those feelings, especially when you have the first trans senator or House of Rep come out and say, hey, we moved too fast. We did too much. We fucked up.
Yeah.
We should not have made this our entire platform. It's going to be the platform the Democrats die on.
It is.
Sounds a lot like the trans fucking senator is going to be a Republican next election, which is going to be weird. But the things that I voted for Trump on are still things that haven't been affected. My freedom of speech is still fucking here, and I'm going to continue saying whatever the fuck I wanted to say. It's actually gotten stronger.
Mm-hmm.
The only
Yeah, it
two
was
things that I
stifled under the last administration. Reached out their 8 octopus legs to the 8 sections of the internet and the world to stifle voices that were on the other side of the political aisle. It was apparent. And people were getting ripped off of social sites and demonetized for just having a view. It's not hateful to have a view. What's hateful is to tell somebody that their opinion doesn't matter. It's not a hateful opinion. I just also have an opinion, and I can hold 2 truths at one time. I can feel bad for families who are being torn apart, but also realize that the responsible party broke the law to come over here, and that was the beginning of the situation. So at some point, they knew that they were going to have to pay for that, and that's why they had been hiding. It's just
well,
it has
it's
to
the
be
same fucking
congruent at some
it's the
point.
same fucking argument that I think me and you said so many times when we were sitting at the fucking table. It's like the dude who's selling drugs on the corner, regardless of his race, regardless of his problem, when he goes to jail, it's fucking sad. Why is it
Yeah.
sad? It's sad for the fucking kid that's in the house. It's not sad for any other fucking reason. It's sad because that kid grows up without a dad, grows up without a parent, grows out up without an aunt or an uncle.
Yeah.
They still shouldn't have done what the fuck they did. It shouldn't be the only choice to be able to get out of the fucking ghetto by dealing drugs. But as a whole, like, I completely understand why people are trying to immigrate here, but do it first from step one, and
Yeah.
then we don't have the problem that we're having. You get in quicker. If we weren't fucking doing mass deportations and we didn't have a deportation problem, we wouldn't have all of the fucking overgrowth dealing with all of the judges actually presiding over these cases and actually bringing people in that aren't asylum seekers. But wait, we broke the fucking system
Yeah.
during 2008, 2010, and everything else, and now it's overrun. We
Yep.
broke it.
Yep. Yep. And now it's being blamed on the person who's trying to fix what was broken. We're not trying to put band-aids on bullet holes now. We're trying to actually fix the problems that have been created. Now, it wasn't technically an open border, but over the last 4 years, until Trump came in office and put effectively a 98% stop on it, and last month 0 came across, it it was open there. In case
They
you didn't
welded
see the
open his
footage,
wall.
yeah, they were in line 10 deep. I mean, 10, 20 wide, hundreds deep, thousands deep. And these people just poured into our country and stressed all of our systems so that Americans who are needing the support and assistance aren't able to get it, because the system is so strained. And I don't think that people understand that Orange Man Bad is really trying to do something good for Americans that actually need the help.
And I think this would go a long way. And I used to do it all the time. If you consider me as just like this bleeding red Republican that only saw red ever, in 2008, and not 2008, when Obama ran in 2012 and 2016, you want to know who I would have voted for both times? No, it was 2008, 2012, whatever. Both terms of Obama, I would have voted for him. Trump, I openly said I voted for Trump day one. I had at the time, my fiance sitting there screaming at me and telling me that she wasn't going to drive me to go vote because I wasn't going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I know some people like that. It was ridiculous. Like, I will divorce you because now I know what kind of person you are. Are you kidding me? Like, have you, these people, these are people that have never sat down and listened to a full speech or a full meeting of President Trump's. And it's more transparent than ever. You can watch anything. You go to the YouTube page for the White House and everything is on there. And just listen to him speak. It's not hateful. He doesn't get mad.
The funny thing is, 2020, we move forward to 2020. You want to know who both voted for Trump? Both of us. Because she understood where I was coming from. She agreed with the problems with like abortion and free speech and everything else. Last year, from what I've been told, screamed and cried that Trump won because Trump's bad. And it's just like, see, that's what happens when you don't care.
Yeah, if you can't continue to stay the course, like right now you're in a firestorm of people trying to make you hate somebody. And that to me makes me want to dig into why. Why does the media, why does every arm of social media want you to hate? The headlines are always twisted around what's actually happening. Why? Why do they want you to hate? So I want to know that. And when I did that research back in, I think it was 2017. I did that research and it was eye-opening for me because I detested this person, misogynistic, didn't like the way he spoke to people, like just all the talk, all the stuff. And I didn't even really listen to talking points or anything like that. It was just kind of the way I felt, and it was the people that I was around. And then when I really just I had to dig into something about a gay marriage thing, and it was not Trump who did it. And I had to eat my words that it wasn't Trump that made the call. And I ate my words right into researching and listening to this man talk about how he feels that the very fabric of the United States is woven and it's coming apart, and he just wants to weave it back. It's
And like, it's weird. And this is the funniest part to me. And this might be me othering them. I don't know if KJ fully disconnected or what, but she
no, I'm
said
here.
bye.
I'm here.
The biggest part to me is, you look at all of these people that just genuinely don't listen. And one of my biggest points for voting for Trump was his support of the family. Oh, I'm going to do this for families. Oh, I'm going to do that for families. I'm going to try and look at families this way and help them in this way and that way, and fix it.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of the people that were like, no, fuck families. A lot of those people are single moms who said, oh, I'm just going to run away, or people that didn't ever have the chance to have kids. It's like,
Yeah.
guys, why are you fucking weighing in on that? Just like the hardcore Christians that are like, hey, no gay marriage. I don't think you should have a voice in that openly either. If you're going to say, hey, it's sin, I don't agree with it, I can understand where you're coming from. That's a thought process. You're saying, hey, you don't agree with the sin. Fine. It's not your choice.
Yeah, don't get gay married.
Don't get gay married. Also, gay people Don't sit here and preside and say that, hey, family health shouldn't be the number one thing for our country, considering we have a declining population and the country's collapsing.
Right, right. No, I get it. I get it. It's all inconsistency, and I believe that it's an attack from within. It's an attack from within our own media systems. Multiple of the media systems. Written, print. Print media as well as social media as well as mainstream legacy media. It's all an attack, and I really feel like if somebody's trying to get you to hate somebody that much, there's got to be there's got to be something else instead of being making that hate and chaos contagious.
Yeah, you got to stop, whether it's in riots or politics, where there's this mental leap. These people are the problem, so anything I do to them is fine. People smashing stores, don't think about the mom who owns
Yeah,
the shop. And it's like you don't have to call everybody people from 1945 or 1960. You stopping to consider that's a person on the other side is how you
yeah,
fix it. You humanizing them and actually having a conversation of understanding where they're coming from and making sure and demanding that they understand you as well. That is how that works, and that's how you reverse this situation. We don't have to keep going through this situation. You have to acknowledge the emotion,
yeah,
but not by sitting here and gaslighting everybody that's around you. You actually have to choose not to become what you hate. The people on the left right now are the people that were in 1945 Germany.
yeah.
They're the silencers, the ones that are burning books and saying, hey, you have to accept this.
Yep.
Trust me, motherfucker. No, we don't.
You don't have to
Slow
accept
down
it.
to anger, fix it. Because when we riot, we cancel, we demonize because it's easier than facing complexity. If you're so much of a knuckle dragger that you can't understand the complexity of the other person on the other side, you probably should stay home. You probably should calm down. You probably should put your mind together a little bit better and become a little bit stronger. Better because we are all on the path that is the lonely road. And if you keep throwing a fit and being a monster in so many people's eyes, you're going to be on that lonely road much, much longer than you should be because you should have friends. You should have people around you that care.
It's
So
about
stop
being
throwing.
human. It's about being human. It's not about being political. At the end of the day, you're talking to a human. You're dealing with a human. If you want to be treated like a human, you need to treat other people as such.
Even in the base notion, like, would you want somebody throwing a fucking cinder block through your car as you're driving up the fucking throughway?
Well, yeah.
No? Okay. Like, that's kind of common sense. Why are you doing this?
Right. Right. Not
Stop
chaos.
the dehumanization at every single level. We don't fucking need it. Start looking at your neighbor and start looking at Bible verses coming from the person who's been agnostic for 31 fucking years, my entire fucking life. Love your neighbor. You don't have to love the fucking things that they do, but love the person that they are. We'll see you
No.
fucking next time. We'll see you fucking later. Goodbye.
Peace out.